How am I supposed to introduce this little thing? Hello friends, and welcome to what I'm going to call an attempt. I'm trying a number of different things in this video. For one, I'm actually talking, which I don't normally do in art-related videos, and two, I'm starting with essentially no preparation, designing a character from scratch and recording the whole process to show you. This could turn out very chaotic or very boring, I don't know yet, but I'm still gonna go for it because I was gonna attempt it whether the camera was rolling or not. So a big theme on my channel thus far is rubber hose style cartoons, primarily centering around video game characters such as Cuphead and Bendy and the Ink Machine, just because I really love the way that these video games have incorporated this classic art style into their game design, and I admire them for that. However, I thought I'd branch away from the existing video game characters for today and see how I would draw a real person as a cartoon character. The inspiration for this came from the cartoon short Mickey's Gala Premiere, which features a ton of silver screen icons from the 20s and 30s. You can watch it by clicking this card here, and if you'd like to see a version that labels each person as they appear in the short, you can click the card that will appear now. And if neither of those show up, they'll both be linked in the description, so you can check that out. Now, I love both old cartoons and old cinema, so this Mickey cartoon was the perfect amalgamation of both, and I was unreasonably excited when I found it. So keeping my love of silent film in mind, the subject I've chosen to turn into a cartoon today is one of three kings of silent comedy, Harold Lloyd. He was one of the first silent actors I ever got into, along with Buster Keaton, who I may do a rubber hose transformation of in the future. Now the funny thing is, Harold is one of the stars featured in the Mickey short, and of course they did an amazing job with his design, so I'm going to try not to let that discourage me and create my own interpretation of how he would look in the rubber hose style. And just as a note, I enjoy art and I enjoy learning about this art style, but I am not a professional animator, nor do I have any type of formal education in the matter. I'm just taking what I've observed about this art style and trying it out for myself. Let's get into the art process. For a project like this, the first thing I'm going to do is look for references, starting with the subject himself. Harold's iconic look to me is a well-fitting suit, relatively messy hair, and of course, the round glasses. I also have to take into account his facial features, down to his eyebrows and mouth shape. With these thoughts in mind, that's where I'm going to start my search for rubber hose character references. You can see exactly what keywords I searched, but I had more luck searching specific titles. Searching things like human rubber hose style came up with more fan art or modern interpretations, which I was not looking for. I wanted either screenshots from original cartoons or character reference sheets. I also kept a picture from Harold's original cartoon debut, just as an additional piece of reference, and so I don't copy it too closely. Once I have all those together, I can start sketching out how I would combine these elements. Let me give you a quick rundown of everything I collected. Here are all of my Harold references. I made sure to keep references for his face, hair, and outfits. I also saved some pictures from specific movies he did so I could see the different suits and costumes he wore. Now we have my cartoon references. I saved anything that was a good reference for things like the body shape, different apparel such as shoes, gloves, hats, and suits, and I managed to find some handy expression sheets, which are great because they show how heads can be drawn from different angles. And of course, I also saved the original cartoon Harold. I'm working on a pretty big sheet of paper so I don't have to worry about erasing over and over again, and I can keep all of my ideas from start to finish in one place. Now let me just say, the sketching process took me about 45 minutes. This reference right here, I swiped through and stopped on it just to stare at it for approximately 10 seconds. Needless to say, I wasn't really sure where to start. I decided to just sketch his face how I initially imagined it would look. Round head, glasses, little triangle mouth. Yeah, it's pretty shabby. Then I tried using one of the actual rubber hose characters and did a version based on that. As you can see, I gave up on that one real quick. From there, I tried sketching more and more faces until I became comfortable with how it looked, swiping back to the Gala version occasionally just to make sure I wasn't too on the nose. Now this reference sheet right here is my new favorite thing. It's perfect for what I wanted to try with this drawing. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make his glasses connect like they do with this character or give them a bridge. I think if I wanted this Harold to have a more cute look, I'd stick with the kind without a bridge, but I ended up flip-flopping between the two designs anyway. I tried versions of him without the hat and give him hair as well, since that's something his Gala version doesn't show. I used that reference sheet a lot to try different expressions of his eyes with the glasses too, which isn't really something I thought about doing until I saw this character's eyes were very expressive even with the glasses. Once I was satisfied with how the head looked, I moved on to the body. Luckily for me, there wasn't a whole lot of variety in men's fashion back then, so matching his suit was not difficult at all. My problems were mostly with getting the body to look right with the proper balance and with the way I envisioned Harold looking. I wanted to make his slim, well-cut suits more apparent instead of going the route of almost baggy trousers like most of the references I chose had. For the hands, I debated whether to put them in gloves or not, since that seems like almost a cliché for rubber hose-style characters, but since it was an article of clothing that was as common as socks are today, and he wears them in quite a few of his movies, I decided to go with them anyway. I also couldn't really decide what to do for the shoes, again because I was stuck between wanting to include all the details of his real shoes and not wanting to just slap a generic rubber hose shoe on him. But that's kind of the thing with rubber hose. Every cartoon borrows from the other, and the style itself involves breaking real-life designs down to their simplest form. So for the shoes, I went with the deflated balloon look, and occasionally added black to the heels and toes to switch it up. Once I decided all that, I tested all of those elements together and drew some of the pictures of Harold that I had saved. I'm just going to speed through this really quickly because I'm going to be inking all of these drawings in just a bit, and I know the quality on this has not been great so far. I'm sorry, the sun was not on the right side of the house. Now this was probably my favorite full body drawing out of all of these here because of the pose and the expression I was able to use. I wasn't planning on doing these movie-themed ones. I was originally just going to take what I developed with the first sketches and imagine new poses and things myself, but I wasn't really confident enough to tackle that, and I had all the pictures right there anyway, so I just drew them. And that is the development process completed. Now I'm going to outline and fill some of these sketches in with blacks and shades of gray. I have a very messy and ugly watercolor paint palette that I will not burden you with the sight of, but rest assured it does exist. I'm starting back with the faces I sketched in the beginning. Of all these faces, I'm outlining the ones that are my favorites so you can see which ones I settled on. You'll probably notice again how I seem to draw the glasses slightly different every time, and that's just because I'm indecisive. Although I have noticed that changing the shape just a little bit in certain ways can help the face appear more expressive. I think that if Harold did have his own cartoon and wasn't limited to a short cameo in someone else's production, this would be something the animators might utilize. I noticed with the first one that I put too much detail in his hair, which is a little funny to say because I really didn't add a lot to it. However, I knew I would be filling it in with black, so there wasn't any point in adding any extra strands of hair inside the outline. I avoided doing that with this face here, as you can see. One thing I noticed about Harold's gala version was that his eyes weren't that classic Pac-Man shape like you usually see, they were actually just dots, and for a character with glasses, that does make sense. I also noticed that with my version, in which I did draw them with the Pac-Man eyes, he kind of looked more childlike and wide-eyed in a way, if that makes sense at all. And now this is about all I have to say about the faces, so I will let this play out until we move on to the suits. And now we begin the suits. I don't really have much to say about them. They were reasonably easy to grasp the concept of, and I had a pretty good idea of how to draw them even in the sketch process, so I just chose the cleanest ones to outline. The most difficult thing for these would simply be the matter of what kinds of blacks and grays to put where. Once these are done, we'll be ready to go on to the full bodies. Alright, time to ink those heads and bodies all together. For these full body sketches, I actually re-sketched and cleaned up some of them off camera before I went in and inked them because they were just too messy or unbalanced. In doing this, I realized that I didn't actually like the way I initially drew some of them, but I tried not to spend too much time over-correcting, and I still inked and colored them all because then I had a better understanding of what I did and didn't like. One thing that I did with these that I admit I didn't do very well was to make the faces or any other exposed skin a light gray. Yes, I made it too dark for some of these, but I noticed it was something they did in the Mickey cartoon, and in Harold's case, doing this accentuated the glasses and hat. It does make sense to do this since it helps white articles of clothing and such stand out. I just didn't do a good job of it. I made his hair jet black for all of these drawings, and I experimented between making his shoes black and his suit gray, his shoes gray and his suits black. You get the picture. My biggest issue with all of these was getting the color of the gray to stay consistent because, contrary to what I said before, I am not using gray, I am simply using watered down black. Oh well. We shall let this run for the final drawing and then we will proceed. Test subjects are complete. Bask in their experimental, unprofessional, unsanctioned glory. Hooray! I'm going to grab some fresh paper and create one final design. Enjoy, and I will see you at the end of the video. I did it! Dang it. How am I supposed to introduce this little thing? And that is my cartoon rendition of Harold Lloyd. Just a silly little project to try something that I like and kind of take you through my art process. If you were curious about that, I don't know. Like I said, this is my first time trying a video like this. Normally when I do art-related videos, I don't talk in them because I don't have a mic at the moment. But today I thought, just forget about the bad mic situation, I want to try something different. And so I did. Silent film is honestly one of my favorite things in the world, and I draw the things that I love anyway, so combining an art style that I love with an actor from that time period I love was a lot of fun for me. I do plan on doing a few more of these, Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin at the very least, just to complete the trio of silent comedy, and then we'll see where I go from there. Goodbye. Inspiration for this came from the short Mickey's, oh, I don't know how to pronounce that word.